There is a quiet war happening inside every human being. It does not roar with bullets or banners, but with whispers, questions that tear at the root of confidence itself. What if I'm wrong? What if I'm not enough? This is the anatomy of self-doubt, an invisible fracture between what we know to be true and what the world convinces us to believe. From birth, we are wired to trust the pulse of intuition, that wordless compass that senses truth before thought. But somewhere between punishment and praise, we trade that compass for approval. The child who once knew the rhythm of honesty begins to measure their worth in the eyes of others. And in that exchange, innocence for validation, the seed of doubt takes root. Psychologists describe it as internalized authority. Spiritual teachers call it the fall. Either way, it is the same moment, the mind separating from its own ground. We stop hearing the subtle intelligence that speaks beneath language and start worshiping borrowed certainty. Soon we forget that knowing and believing are not the same thing. Doubt begins as protection. The brain learns to hesitate before acting, to avoid pain. But repeated hesitation becomes identity, a ghost of fear wrapped in logic. Neuroscience tells us that every doubt fires in the same circuitry as physical threat. To the body, uncertainty feels like danger. So we cling to reassurance like oxygen, likes, compliments, doctrines, lovers who echo back the illusions we need. We call it connection, but it's dependency, wearing a friendly mask. The tragedy is that reassurance feels holy. Someone believes in you, and for a moment the noise fades. But if the faith you stand on isn't your own, it will crumble the instant they turn away. That's why self-doubt never ends by adding more belief. It ends when you stop outsourcing your permission to exist. Imagine a child told never to ride his bicycle because the road is unsafe. Then another voice arrives, charming, daring, whispering, "Your father is afraid of your greatness." The child disobeys, crashes, hides his guilt, and begins a lifelong ritual: rebellion, shame, denial, repeat. That child becomes the adult who mistakes pride for freedom, who calls disobedience self-expression, while secretly longing to be guided again. What if the original betrayal was not against God or authority, but against awareness itself? When you doubt what you know is right, you split consciousness into two halves, the knower and the pleaser. From then on, one half performs while the other watches, silently condemning. You live divided, half actor, half judge, and the audience you imagine is the world. Every culture builds systems around this split. Religion promises redemption. Psychology offers affirmation. Consumerism sells self-esteem. Yet each system feeds on the very wound it claims to heal. Because as long as you feel incomplete, you will keep buying the idea of wholeness. Doubt is profitable. But truth? Truth is free, and freedom terrifies the marketplace. At its core, doubt is pride inverted. It is the refusal to surrender to something higher than intellect. We doubt because we want to rule reality. We want certainty without humility. The ego whispers, "If I can explain everything, I'll be safe." But explanation is not peace. Peace begins where the need to prove ends. Science calls this metacognition, the mind observing itself. Spirituality calls it awareness. The soul remembering it is not the noise it hears. When awareness turns inward without judgment, the circuitry of fear begins to quiet. Slowly, the nervous system relearns trust. Not the naive trust of a child seeking approval, but the mature trust of a consciousness aligned with reality. We spend years chasing confidence as if it were a reward. But confidence is not the absence of doubt. It is the ability to act while doubt is present. Courage is not believing you'll succeed. It's remembering that failure cannot erase your essence. The self that watches is older than every mistake. Think of how light behaves through a prism. White light, pure and whole, enters and fractures into colors. Each color forgets that it was once the same light. Human consciousness is that prism. Self-doubt is the moment we start worshiping one color and forget the unity behind it. You don't heal self-doubt by becoming certain. You heal it by remembering the stillness before the question arose. Every meditation, every breath that pauses before thought, is a rehearsal for that remembrance. There, you discover something miraculous. The same intelligence that spins galaxies is animating your next inhale. How could such a force create you lacking? The great teachers hinted at this in different languages. Christ called it the kingdom within. Buddha called it awakening. Modern physics calls it coherence, when particles move in harmony with the field that contains them. Different tongues, same truth. Alignment is our natural state. Doubt is merely the interference pattern of pride and fear colliding. But how do you return? Not by force. Not by chanting affirmations over the noise. You return by seeing the mechanism clearly, the seduction, the guilt, the defense. When you watch doubt without resisting it, it unravels. Because doubt cannot survive observation. It feeds only on avoidance. The moment you face it directly, you rob it of its power source, your attention. Notice the pattern of your day. How many choices are disguised apologies? How many goals are subtle attempts to prove someone wrong? That's the architecture of doubt. An invisible religion built on the fear of being seen as less. You pray to it every time you hide your light to keep another comfortable. But underneath the fear is something unbreakable. Call it soul, call it consciousness, call it the unconditioned field. It does not matter. It watches every drama without aging. It has never been wounded, never been flattered. It simply waits for you to remember. The return begins with a single confession. I was wrong to doubt what I knew was right. That sentence is not guilt, it is liberation. Because once you admit that your compass was real, even when you ignored it, you step back into alignment with reality itself. And reality forgives instantly. It doesn't need rituals, it needs recognition. So breathe. Let the tension between who you are and who you pretend to be melt into awareness. This is not self-improvement. It is self-remembering. You are not learning confidence. You are unlearning distortion. Every time you pause before reacting, you return a fragment of consciousness to its source. Slowly, the prism clears. Light becomes whole again. Every moment you resist what you feel, you feed what you fear. Every moment you observe without resistance, you reclaim your authority from illusion. Self-doubt survives only where there is unobserved reaction. Have you noticed how guilt always follows rebellion? Not because life punishes you, but because conscience restores equilibrium. The voice we call guilt is simply the echo of forgotten intelligence saying return. Yet pride interprets that echo as threat, and so the cycle continues: resistance, shame, denial, disguise. Most people build entire lives to avoid that echo. We fill our calendars with noise, our relationships with performance, our minds with endless analysis. But silence exposes what we fear to see, that much of what we call personality is protection. Our charm, ambition, even our spirituality often serve the same master: avoidance of self-honesty. Look closely and you will see, doubt is never born in the present moment. It is memory pretending to be wisdom. The nervous system replays old pain and labels it caution. The mind, loyal to its past, insists, "This is who I am." But awareness is not memory. Awareness is the space in which memory appears and dissolves. It existed before the first thought of failure. Neuroscientists have discovered that when a person enters deep contemplative focus, the brain's self-referential network quiets. The regions responsible for comparison, prediction, and judgment go dim. In that quiet, a new coherence arises between heart rhythm and brain waves, an order that feels like peace. Mystics have described this for millennia. When the false self pauses, truth reveals itself. Science calls it synchronization. Sages call it grace. The paradox is that true confidence has nothing to do with self-esteem. Esteem is comparative. It needs an audience. Confidence is communion. It needs only presence. When you are aligned, even humility glows with quiet power. You no longer need to convince the world you're right because your being itself becomes evidence. Every addiction on earth, chemical, emotional, digital, is a negotiation with doubt. The gambler, the influencer, the workaholic, the lover who cannot be alone, they all chase the same anesthesia. Reassurance that the self they perform is real. But identity built on validation is a sandcastle against the tide. Sooner or later, the sea of silence arrives, and what remains is what was always there: awareness watching the waves. This is why the greatest act of courage is not conquest, but surrender. To surrender is not to give up. It is to give back. You return control to the intelligence that never lost it. When you stop wrestling with life, life begins to move through you with precision. Decisions become spontaneous alignments instead of calculated defenses. Many fear surrender because they mistake it for weakness. But what is weaker than living as an imposter of your own soul? True strength is transparent. It hides nothing, defends nothing, and therefore cannot be broken. Even death bends before transparency, because death can only claim what resists change. Remember the countless times you sought validation after conflict, how relief came only when another person absolved you. That relief was counterfeit forgiveness. Real forgiveness begins when you no longer require permission to be at peace. You forgive not because someone deserves it, but because freedom does. The deeper mystery of doubt is that it secretly serves awakening. Without it, we would never question false gods of status, ideology, even spirituality. Doubt, when faced consciously, becomes the scalpel that separates truth from imitation. It is not the enemy. It is the instrument. But in the hands of pride, it turns against its owner. Only humility can wield it without self-destruction. So the task is not to destroy doubt, but to purify its energy. Transmute it into inquiry, into curiosity that seeks understanding rather than control. Ask not, "Am I enough?" but "What in me asks that question?" Follow the inquiry inward until no questioner remains. What's left is awareness, formless, fearless, whole. Throughout history, every enlightenment story is the same inversion. A human being stops adding answers and starts subtracting illusions. The mystic loses his certainties, the scientist loses his bias, the lover loses the need to possess. What remains is simplicity so vast it feels divine. To live from that simplicity is to live without contradiction. You may wonder, if truth is so simple, why do so few embody it? Because simplicity threatens every structure built on control. A free mind cannot be ruled, marketed to, or made afraid. That is why society rewards cleverness, but fears clarity. Cleverness thrives on complexity, clarity dissolves it, and yet, beneath all our clever inventions, every soul longs for the same thing: peace without precondition. Picture humanity as a forest, each tree reaching for light, competing for space, unaware that their roots drink from the same underground river. When one tree doubts its worth, it forgets the river and struggles for sunlight it already receives. So it grows crooked, fighting imaginary enemies. But the moment it remembers the water beneath, it stands still, nourished from below. That stillness is faith, not belief, but direct participation in life. Faith is the opposite of doubt, not because it guarantees certainty, but because it removes the need for it. To have faith is to trust the movement of existence even when your mind cannot map it. It is to feel the invisible architecture supporting every breath. From that trust arises effortless action, what the ancients called wu wei, doing without forcing. Observe nature and you'll see, nothing doubts itself. A river does not question its course, nor does a star second-guess its shine. Only humans, gifted with imagination, use that gift against themselves. But the same imagination that builds illusion can build liberation. Imagine what it would feel like to live without needing proof. That feeling is not fantasy, it's memory of the original state. When you remember who you are, even your pain becomes teacher. You see doubt as weather, not identity. Storms pass, and the sky remains unchanged. The soul is that sky, untouched by every temporary cloud. Your thoughts are thunder, your emotions rain, they come and go, but you are the horizon that never ends. Look around you. The modern world worships acceleration, yet healing unfolds in stillness. We chase productivity to escape the discomfort of simply being. But existence has no quota. You are not here to prove. You are here to perceive. And perception, when free from judgment, becomes love. Love, the real kind, is not reassurance. It does not tell you you're perfect. It reveals that you were never broken. It does not flatter your image. It restores your origin. That love cannot be earned because it is what you are made of. When you see this clearly, even your doubt dissolves in gratitude. Somewhere inside, a quiet certainty whispers through the noise. You can stop pretending now. That whisper is the beginning of the end of self-doubt. And when you listen, not with your ears but with your entire being, you realize you were never searching for confidence. You were searching for the courage to be undefended. That is the rebirth of authenticity. Not a new identity, but the death of imitation. The moment you stop performing for love, you start radiating it. And when you radiate, you no longer attract saviors. You awaken equals. The question remains, how do we live this truth amid the noise of modern life? Awareness cannot be scheduled between meetings, nor discovered in a weekend retreat. It must become the posture of existence itself, a quiet alignment between breath and reality. To live awake is not to withdraw from the world, but to meet it without distortion. Each morning grants a choice. Will you act from memory or from presence? Memory is a labyrinth built of comparison, resentment, and unfinished sentences. Presence is a single open doorway. The world looks the same through both, yet one suffocates and the other breathes. To step through the doorway requires nothing dramatic, only honesty. Honesty is the gatekeeper of freedom. The mind trained in self-doubt will resist honesty. It will disguise avoidance as intellect, cynicism as wisdom, confidence as arrogance. Watch these disguises without judging them. They are not enemies. They are costumes worn by fear. The moment you see the costume, the actor behind it blushes into truth. That blush is humility, a brief yet eternal homecoming. Humility is the beginning of real intelligence. Not the memorized kind, but the luminous clarity that sees through complexity. It asks no permission to exist. It simply illuminates. When humility and awareness merge, insight flows like light through glass. You stop trying to fix yourself and begin to understand yourself. And understanding itself transforms. Every spiritual practice points toward this understanding, though each uses different language. Prayer, meditation, contemplation, silence, all are methods for remembering what never left. They are not escapes from the world. They are ways of re-entering it uncorrupted. The true mystic walks the marketplace with the same stillness found in the mountains. He buys, sells, loves, mourns, but nothing owns him anymore. Imagine a civilization where children are taught to observe their thoughts before identifying with them. Where education begins not with information, but with awareness. Such a society would not glorify certainty but curiosity, not dominance but reverence. It would measure intelligence not by what we know, but by how deeply we can listen. That is the civilization waiting beneath the rubble of our pride. You, watching this, are not separate from its birth. Every time you meet doubt with awareness instead of reaction, You help tilt humanity toward sanity. You become a node of coherence in the collective field. Your calm ripples invisibly into the nervous systems of others. This is not poetic exaggeration. Heart-field studies now show that emotion is contagious through resonance. Peace literally transmits. So when you forgive yourself, you are not just healing personal guilt, you are lowering the global temperature of fear. Every act of presence is activism. Every breath taken consciously is prayer. We are each instruments of the same unseen symphony, tuning slowly back to harmony. Still, the ego will return. It will whisper you've lost it, or you're not doing enough. Smile at it. The voice of doubt cannot enter where it is met with laughter. Laughter is the soul's refusal to worship its own suffering. It turns tragedy into light. Look deeper into the nature of your own awareness. Is it male or female, old or young, born or dying? It has no edge, no nationality, no past. This formless witness has never doubted anything because it has never needed to believe. It simply knows. And through you, it experiences itself unfolding into form. When that recognition stabilizes, even pain becomes a form of participation. You stop asking, why is this happening to me? And start realizing, this is happening through me. Responsibility replaces victimhood. Creation replaces complaint. Gratitude becomes the only logical response to existence. Sometimes awakening feels like loss of certainty, of belonging, of old loves. But what dies is only the scaffolding built around fear. What remains is simple, transparent aliveness. You breathe, you look, you love. There is no mission grander than that. In time, even the word self-doubt fades. It becomes a memory of a dream you once believed was real. You see others still caught in that dream and your heart softens. You don't preach, you embody. Because truth is never taught. It is remembered in the presence of one who lives it. So if you must practice anything, practice remembering. Remember before every decision, before every argument, before every heartbeat. Remember that you are awareness, having a human experience, not a human seeking awareness. When you forget, life will remind you, gently at first, then louder. But each reminder is love in disguise. At the end of all seeking, the voice of doubt dissolves into the same silence it once feared. The mind bows to the mystery it can never own. And in that bow, something eternal stands upright within you. Call it soul, consciousness, God. It has 1,000 names but one fragrance: peace. Now the world looks different. Every sound feels sacred, every face familiar. You realize that to trust yourself is not arrogance, it is obedience to reality. To honor your knowing is to honor the intelligence that made galaxies. The simplest act, a breath, a glance, a word spoken kindly, becomes prayer. So the next time you feel doubt rising, don't fight it. Pause, breathe, watch. Behind the tremor is an old echo saying, remember who you are. Smile back. That smile is the end of war. You were never meant to conquer self-doubt. You were meant to outgrow the need for it. And when you do, what remains is effortless clarity, the quiet confidence of being aligned with the truth that has always known your name.